Hey Shadid, how are you?
Doing well. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. How are you doing today?
I feel good. I feel good.
Yeah, first of all, congratulations on your wedding and also birth of your first son. Very happy
Yes.
for you.
Thank you so much. This is my first married bee spud session. So yes, it's official. So I'm thrilled at the direction life is taking and all the moments that are happening and just having an opportunity to witness it in real time. It's a magical time for me. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get into the announcements for this session. Okay, give me 1 second, please. And thank you to all who are tuning in: Sherry, Cigar, Robin, Rick, Matt, Don, David, and those of you who are tuning in through the streaming channels that we're broadcasting live from. So let me share my screen as I mentioned. Okay, so welcome to the 2023 edition of the Baltimore SharePoint Users Group. There's so many things happening in the Microsoft space. Who knows? We may be the Power Platform Group by the middle of the year. But I'm going to go into some overview because as the rule goes, whenever there's a new member or a new attendee, I have to tell a bit of the story of how we've come to be. And so let's go into it. So we are, as of calendar year 2023, we are Maryland's longest running Microsoft focused community learning institution. So since calendar year 2007, we've opened our doors. And here's a fun fact: every single month since July 2007, we have held a meeting. And so we typically meet on the third Thursday of each month, no matter if it's in person or virtual. Our premise, our promise is the same. And so when we look at quantifying, let's say, the people, the professionals who have come through the doors virtually or in person to learn, we're right around 4,500 at this time. So chances are, if you are doing some form of Microsoft learning, I have met you at one of these meetings. And so community in itself is an incredible tool that helps you to accelerate your learning path. Let's say if you pick a platform to learn, the beauty of it is that you're surrounded with people who have a similar or common interest, and that speeds up your learning curve. And so that can lead to new job opportunities, that can lead to developing the speaking habit and developing your public speaking skills. There's a number of ways that you can go, but there's always a benefit to connect to your local users group. And so within our region, there's several, ranging from, say, SQL to Power Platform, and also SharePoint within, let's say, going down to Virginia, Northern Virginia, DC, Southern Maryland, and of course, Greater Baltimore. And so another fun fact, 21 Microsoft practices were started within our membership, including 3 Microsoft Gold partners. And so the beauty of that is no matter what happens, a user group can support the evolution of its members. So if someone, in one specific case, A gentleman was laid off from a consulting company. He was a full-time employee, and he gathered 2 other individuals, and they formed the company together. And the rest is history. Microsoft Gold Partner. And so I'm very proud of the growth and evolution of the members. And one of the goals, no matter what may happen, is the user group is bigger than any individual effort that I can think of or put together. And so keeping that engine going is going to be a major focus. I would say longer than a 12-month plan. Let's look at up to 16 months of just focusing on how that can come to be. And so special thanks to Ted Stanley, who for many years when we were in person would stay after work and make sure that the logistics were taken care of for our meetings. As we've gone virtual for our meetings for the foreseeable future, ProObject still supports our meetings. And so if you are looking for work and you live in the greater Maryland, DC, Virginia area, please send your resume to tmstaley@proobject.com. Thank you to ProObject for continued support. Now, I'm going to go into, so these are, let's say, a few bullet points. This was, had an idea this month, was we typically do a State of the Union meeting at the beginning of each year. But since Prashant is also traditionally leads off the year, wanted to give him the full time for this meeting, which is the 3rd Thursday. So the first Thursday, we had a more or less a live broadcast where I walked through some details of which that will be rolling out in 2023. So BeastBug Career Dashboard, this allows for professionals to gain career advice. So review a resume, LinkedIn, so on and so forth. And so be on the lookout for the career dashboard. It's not let's say a sales pitch where recruiters will be contacting you. It's more or less privatized advice for members. Okay, and so also with last meeting's highlights, our learning path, which will be focused more on, let's say, specific learning. So for example, if we're talking about RPA for Power Automate, we're going to feature, let's say, we're going to take diligent notes for this session and produce worksheets that will allow each attendee to reinforce what they've learned in the session. So as we move forward, we'll collaborate with our speakers, and more or less, we'll work on our end to produce homework so that the topic has additional legs or additional life after the session is delivered. Of course, we have the recording. Of course, we have the slides. But if you sit and you listen to someone for 1 hour and you don't get anything from it, we're looking to strengthen that area in terms of retention and value for our speakers overall. And finally, certification cohort. So naturally, our members and users want to gain certifications. And so we'll be having guided classes virtually to go through some of the common Microsoft certifications that are considered essential. And if you haven't seen this training, I came across this recently, PL900 Microsoft Power Platform Fundamentals. And so it's 7.5 hours of video training geared around the Microsoft Power Platform. So you may be SharePoint on-prem expert, and you may be lost in terms of, well, where do I go now that Microsoft is focused on the cloud and Power Platform? Where do I fit in? It's always best to start with the fundamentals. So PL900, Microsoft Power Platform Fundamentals will be a great addition to your learning toolkit. And now, our featured speaker. I bring to you, not only is this gentleman part of the engine that makes SharePoint Saturday run, he is a Microsoft MVP many times over in the AI space, as well as business applications. This gentleman is a Microsoft certified trainer, as well as MCP. He currently delivers his skill set as a cloud solution architect for the Applied Information Services. This gentleman is an active speaker, active international speaker, and co-author of PowerShell for Office 365, as well as technical reviewer of the book Pro SharePoint 2013 Administration. Now, he also serves on leadership committees for several events in the AI space, as well as SQL user group and the Metro Office 365 user group, which I've had the pleasure of being a guest speaker. I bring to you the Prashant Bhoyar. Take it away.
Thank you, Shadid, for this wonderful introduction. So let me start with sharing my screen. Give me a minute.
And I will be working the chat for any questions that may come up. Please, if you are in attendance, please use the chat for any questions that may come up in this session.
All right, can you see my screen okay?
Yes, I can.
All right, so welcome everyone. Welcome to the first session or technical session of the Baltimore SharePoint user group. First of all, I wish you all happy and prosperous new year. So the title for today's session is Getting Started with Robotic Process Automation with Power Automate for Desktop. Let's see why the subtitles are not available. Okay, let me start this again. Okay, so who am I? My name is Prashant Bhoyar. I was born and raised in India. I came to the United States in 2007 for studies. I am University of Maryland College Park alumni. So if we have any Terp, go Terps. I co-authored a book, PowerShell for Office 365. I also acted as a technical reviewer for the book Pro SharePoint 2013 Administration. And as Shadid mentioned, I am very active in the Washington, D.C. area community. I help run a couple of meetups, and we also organize community conferences as well. So if you are interested in joining us, you can check us out on azurecloudevents.com. And looks like there is some issue with my internet connection. To save the space, what I will do is I will just turn off the live subtitles. So give me a minute. And first, I need to figure out how to get rid of this. Here, let's see.
I would say the first thing is if you run into any connectivity, just shut off video until things settle. Still see your desktop.
Okay, so you see my desktop. Okay, perfect. All right, and now I'm going to share my screen. Perfect. All right, can you see me okay, and can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. So I am recipient of Antarctic Service Medal. I got this award from US government for the work I did in the Antarctic continent back in 2008. And since 2017, I am recipient of Microsoft MVP award. Those of you who are not familiar with this, I don't work for Microsoft. It's just the additional recognition that Microsoft gives out to the folks who does technical contributions. And your technical contributions can be in the form of speaking at conferences, writing blog posts, answering people's questions on various public forums, contributing to the open source project, or providing direct feedback to the Microsoft product group. And this award is valid for 12 months or 1 year only. And after 1 year, you have to submit your contributions. And if your contributions are good enough, then Microsoft will give you this award for additional year. So initially, Since I'm very closely involved with SharePoint community in the Washington DC area, for the first couple of years, my category in MVP award was Office 365 apps and services, especially SharePoint. And then I started playing it, started working on some of the Microsoft AI services. Then in 2019, I changed my category to AI. And last year, I got in two categories, artificial intelligence as well as business applications. And Shadid made a very interesting point in the beginning that we may need to rebrand this user group to a Power Platform, because that's where, a lot of investment is happening from Microsoft, where now we see or if you go back 10 years before, and if you ask any consultant who was working in, let's say, in Microsoft space, he or she may say, hey, I'm creating or I'm working on an application using, let's say, SharePoint, or I'm working on an application using, let's say, SQL, or I'm creating an application using ASP.NET. But now, if you see, more and more consultants or more and more organizations are pretty much using all the services are there in Microsoft Cloud. And Microsoft has three public cloud. One is Microsoft 65, second is Power Platform, and third one is Azure. And a lot of services or a lot of things that we do these days are really tightly connected with each other. And as far as my day-to-day job is concerned, I'm currently working as cloud solution architect at AIS, where I focus on intelligent business process automation. I know it sounds kind of a mouthful, but what I essentially do is I help customers to implement automation. And while doing that, we use all the major services in Microsoft 3 clouds, such as Microsoft 65, Power Platform, Azure AI, and some of the Azure services. And I work at AIS Reston, Virginia office. And AIS has been providing services in Microsoft ecosystem from last 40 years. And we have been recipient of Microsoft Partner of the Year award on multiple occasions. And just like other firms in the United States, AIS is growing and we have a lot of opportunities. So if you are interested, we have a lot of open positions and you can be located anywhere in USA, Canada, and UK, and you can be 100% remote as well. So if you are in the job market or someone you know is looking for a change, definitely check us out on ais.com/careers. Or you can also send me your resume to prashant.bhoyar at ais.com. So since today's topic is of RPA, we as AIS as a company has a lot of IP out there in the RPA space. Like we have developed a white paper in collaboration with Microsoft, where you can see like how you can do enterprise deployment for RPA and more in Power Automate, and you can go to this particular link and download this white paper for free. We also have a couple of courses around RPA and Power Platform on Pluralsight. So if you can go to this link and find those out as well. And some of the information that I'm going to share today is actually coming from the recent work we have done in the RPA space. So before we get into RPA or Power Automate for desktop, I always have this slide in the talks that I do. Remember, the technology or tool does not matter. What kind of problem you are solving using that technology or tool matters a lot. So this is going to be a brief agenda. We'll start with what is Power Automate. Then we will go deep into the Power Automate for desktop, which the tool we use to implement robotic process automation in Microsoft ecosystem. I will talk about what is hyperautomation. We will give like an overview of, in case you are interested in implementing RPA or desktop flows, then we'll give you the overview of the tool that we have to use to do that. We'll talk about what is the difference between attended versus unattended RPA. We'll have demos, key takeaways, and Q&A. Even though I mentioned Q&A towards the end, feel free to ask your questions at any time because your questions will not only help me, but other attendees as well. And I prefer interactive sessions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat window or just use raise your hand feature and Shadi can make you a panelist or he can unmute you and then you can ask your question that way as well. With that, let me see if I can just move this to somewhere else. Okay, perfect. So let's talk about what is Microsoft Power Automate. So Microsoft Power Automate is one of the members of Microsoft Power Platform. And in Microsoft Power Platform, we have Power Pages for website development, which is the newest member of Power Platform. But when the Power Platform was launched, earlier it had Power Apps for application development, Power Automate for automation, and Power BI for business analytics. And later on, Microsoft introduced Power Virtual Agent for intelligent chatbots or virtual agents. And recently they announced about Power Pages, which is earlier it used to be part of Power Apps, and it used to call Power Apps Portal. And the data service that we have in Power Platform is Dataverse. And pretty much anyone can use Microsoft Power Platform. You can be a citizen developer, you can be a professional developer. Everyone is welcome to use Microsoft Power Platform. And there has been tremendous momentum Microsoft is seeing in the usage and adoption of Microsoft Power Automate. Like there has been since January 1, 2021, Microsoft has seen 150% increase or growth in the Power Automate actions. There are more than 650 pre-built connectors are there, and you can build your own custom connectors as well. And there are 1 million plus active monthly Power Automate users out there. And using Power Automate, you can build automation, not only targeting services in Microsoft ecosystem, such as Microsoft 365, SharePoint, Teams, Azure, Microsoft Power Platform, or Dataverse, but you can also implement automation targeting other 9 non-Microsoft systems as well. And also you can implement automation using your legacy on-premise system as well. And these are some of the value pillars of Microsoft Power Automate. We can build automation at scale. For example, if you go with Power Automate, and if you build an automation, and let's say that automation starts when you, let's say, upload a file in SharePoint. Now, if you compare the same scenario in the old on-premise days, and in on-premise, if you are using SharePoint workflows, and let's say now suddenly someone upload hundreds and hundreds of files into a document library, and you have a SharePoint workflow that starts every time someone uploads a file. A lot of time, what used to happen is your workflows used to have a bottleneck in terms of like only few workflows used to get executed at a given time. And then once, let's say, first 10 workflows get executed, then next 10 will get executed, and then you have to wait. That is not the case with any of the services in Power Platform. Now, for example, if I implement an automation where the automation starts when I upload a new file into SharePoint Online, and suddenly if I upload 1,000 files at a time, the underlying infrastructure behind the scene, which is hosted by Microsoft, can support that automation at scale. Everything we do will be very secure, and some of the automation options that are available in Power Automate can help you to accelerate productivity. And we can integrate our automation with a lot of AI services that are available. Those AI services can be from Power Platform, such as AI Builder, but you can also build your own AI services, like such as your custom AI services, or you can use AI services from Azure, such as Cognitive Services, or you can also use AI services from Google, AWS, or other third-party vendors as well. There is a big list of template libraries templates are available, and you can start from scratch as well. But if you are new to Power Automate, I highly recommend you to start using templates because templates will give you a good overview, like how to what kind of actions you need to use in case you would like to build a specific set of automation. Now let's pivot to the RPA offering of Power Automate. So initially, when Microsoft launched Power Automate, its earlier name was Microsoft Flow. And that time, Microsoft Flow was only doing something called as a digital process automation. And then later on, Microsoft acquired a company called SoftMotive. And SoftMotive had a product called WinAutomate, which was basically an RPA product. And now they integrated that product within Microsoft Power Automate. Okay. And with Microsoft Power Automate, they call it as a Power Automate for Desktop, which is a free tool, by the way. You can get it already as part of your Windows 11 setup, or you can download it for free and install it on your Windows 10 machine or your Windows supported OS server as well. And it has a really easy to use drag and drop kind of functionality where you can implement automation for both desktop as well as web. It has a really robust error handling features, and it is a really good enterprise grade RPA product. That means not only we can use drag and drop functionality, but let's say you would, as part of your automation, you would like to execute a PowerShell script, or you would like to execute a Python script, or a JavaScript script, or VB script, or you would like to call a command line or an executable on the server, or the Windows machine. You can all do that. And there are two types of mode available: attended versus unattended, and I will talk about that later in this session as well. And there are like more than 400 actions available. So if you are familiar with SharePoint workloads, or let's say traditional cloud flows, both have like some actions, like same concept here, like where you have pre-built actions. And those actions, using those actions, not only you can implement automation focused targeting some of the Microsoft ecosystem products, but you can also work with Citrix and VDI environments. You can work with databases. You can work with PDF, XML files, folders. You can capture mouse clicks. You can do email operation. You can use some AI services as well. So when it comes to implement automation, sky is the limit. There's a lot of support available. Now, if you are reading the literature or seeing some of the material that is coming from Microsoft in space of automation, they are using a term called hyperautomation. Now, let's see what is a hyperautomation. The idea behind hyperautomation is no matter what kind of automation you have to build, the Power Automate as a product can support that. For example, you can infuse AI services, and within using AI services, not only you can do digital process automation, but you can also implement automation for legacy UI system or legacy Windows application using robotic process automation. So using Power Automate, you can not only use a digital process automation, but you can also use RPA as well. And there are more than 600 connectors available. You can build your custom connectors as well. For example, if you have a legacy system, which is on-premise, and via your automation, you have to integrate with that via Power Automate, you can build a custom connector, and you can integrate your legacy application via a custom connector into Power Automate as well as Power Apps. And you can also do the same thing with Logic Apps as well, which is one of the services in Azure. Now, using Power Automate, not only we can implement API-based automation, which falls under digital process automation, but we can also implement automation with our old apps, which does not have an API. And that's where robotic process automation will come into picture. And that brings to a question. Okay, now if I had to build an automation, and which approach shall I use? Shall I use digital process automation first, or shall I use RPA first? And this is what I tell the customer. Like when it comes to, if you had to compare digital process automation versus RPA, and if I had to give you an example, what is a digital process automation? Now, if you want to start your automation, when an email comes to your mailbox, and your mailbox is hosted in Exchange Online as part of your Microsoft 365, and as soon as you get an email, you want to, whatever the attachment is in that email, you want to download that. You would like to use some AI services to extract some of the key information from the attachment. And later on, you would like to store that attachment into, let's say, a OneDrive or SharePoint Online. Those is part of digital process automation. Now, what's the robotic process automation is, let's say there is no API support. That means once I get an email and then extract the key information from that attachment that is part of the email, now I would like to get that information and add that to my legacy application. And that legacy application does not have any API support. And only way I can do that is someone has to manually open that legacy application and do the manual data entry. That is a gold candidate for RPA. Because if you had to compare digital process automation versus RPA, RPA is expensive. RPA is very, very difficult as compared to digital process automation. And RPA is also a little bit slower as compared to digital process automation. And I will show you that during the demo, what exactly that means. That means while building an automation, your first approach should be using digital process automation as much as possible. And let's say for some reason you don't have any API support, or the operation that you would like to do to build an API, it's going to take a lot longer. Then you should use RPA as a fallback option. Now, with robotic process automation, and if you go with Power Automate for desktop, you can use input-output variable. So treat your input-output variable, if you are familiar with, let's say, custom code, and if you have used any JavaScript function, or if you have used any C# code, then input-output parameter says, when your desktop flow or RPA is starting, you can provide some input information. And once the RPA execution is done, then you can pass back the output of that RPA execution to either the next RPA job or to the cloud flow that is starting your a desktop flow over there. And as I mentioned, you can use this input-output parameters to exchange information between your desktop flow as well as your cloud flow. And there is a really easy way. If you want to start an RPA job, there's an easy way you can do that from Cloudflow. All you have to do is you have to use this action called run a flow, built by either Power Automate for desktop or using a Selenium IDE. But one thing you have to keep in mind is if you try to use this action, it is coming up with a premium flag. And that's why I go back to my previous statement I made is, if you compare digital process automation versus RPA, RPA tends to be on expensive side. And if you look at Microsoft pricing on Power Automate, let me open that and let me bring this here. And if you look at the pricing from Microsoft on Power Automate right now, and this is the retail price, you'll see that you can do RPA license per user, which is $15. But if you would like to use attended RPA, that price increase like almost double. And this only covers the attended RPA. If you would like to use unattended add-on, then there's additional charges for it. So always keep this in mind is your RPA should be your last resort, and RPA is expensive, and RPA is also a little bit slower when it comes to when it compared to digital process automation. However, there are some really genuine use cases are there where a lot of enterprises are using RPA to solve those use cases. As I mentioned, everything is available as a drag and drop when it comes to Power Automate for desktop. Power Automate for desktop is a free product. You can install it as long as you have admin rights on your machine. You should be able to install it and play with it. And to use Power Automate for desktop in attended mode, you can do it for free. You don't need to have any Microsoft 365 account. You can use that even your personal Microsoft account as well. However, let's say if you don't have a premium license, you can run these flows on your machine, but you will not be able to, like manually you can run this desktop flow on your machine. But if you would like to call this desktop flow via Cloudflow, that's where you need a premium Power Automate license or a per flow license. Now that brings up to the next thing is, what's the difference between attended versus unattended mode? So attended means you need to be logged into the machine to start that RPA job, and the user session has to be active. And unattended means nobody needs to be logged into the machine. As long as you configure that automation, it will run as a backend job. Let's say your RPA job as part of your RPA job, you're opening a website, you're uploading a file, you're opening a legacy application, you are doing a bunch of operation over there. Everything will happen automatically for you. And if you ask me, most of the enterprises use RPA in unattended mode because very few companies will hire you just to watch what a RPA bot is doing for you. And you will do that when in attended mode. Where does the attended mode helps? For example, if you would like to automate few things that you do every day, for example, you have to enter the timesheet every day, and you can use the free version of Power Automate for desktop to automate that for yourself, and you can run that in attended mode manually every day on your machine. So those kind of scenarios, attended mode is really good for. But in most of the organization, unattended mode is the one which is very popular, and it comes with some additional cost as well. With that, I would like to pause and see if there are any questions in the chat window.
Yes, please post your questions in the chat.
Okay. Now, when you run an RPA using Power Automate in attended mode, the user will need to sign into the machine and they will see everything happening. Like, for example, after this is done, I will show you what exactly that attended means and what exactly unattended means. Whereas in an unattended mode, nobody is going to be logged into that server or machine where the RPA job is running. You can only find out how exactly your RPA job went, whether it finished successfully or failed, using the Power Automate UI. All right, so with that, let's go and dive deep into the Power Automate for desktop. So here, I will close this and I will start from scratch. So as I mentioned, Power Automate for desktop is a free product. Now let's go and you can go to this link. There are multiple ways you can install Power Automate for desktop. You can use using an MSI installer, or you can also download and run this as an app, like a Windows app as well. But if you ask me, I would always go with MSI because in my experience, I have seen that version more stable as compared to the one you download from the Windows App Store. And then the setup and configuration is very straightforward. Once you install, you can just open that up on your Windows machine. And so far, Power Automate for desktop is only supported on Windows OS, both the desktop as well as on a server. And the concept are similar. Like, first thing you have to do is you have to sign in. For example, if I sign out here, so if you are using the Power Automate for desktop for the first time and you launch it, the first thing it will ask you to sign in. So I'm going to sign in with my Microsoft 365 account. And even if your company does not have a premium license, you can still use Power Automate for desktop. However, some of the things that you can do will be limited, but still it's a good way to get yourself familiar with Power Automate for desktop. So once I sign in, and if everything is correct, it will pull up my user information. And here you will see a bunch of information. One thing I really liked about this particular user interface or welcome screen you get is you can get a tour. And if you scroll down, there are some really nice examples are there. You can see some tutorials directly from the Microsoft Learn, which can help you to get started with your journey using Power Automate for desktop. And if you scroll down, there are some useful links like information about pricing, community forum. For example, there's a really good community support available. In case you have any questions, you can post your questions in the community and someone from the community will answer that for you. And if you scroll down, you will see some of the latest announcements from the product group. And you will see the link to some other Power Platform products as well. And just like we have concept of environments in other Power Platform products, same concept is go here as well, where you will be listing your desktop flows part of your environment. Like when you sign in, most likely a default environment will be shown, but using this button, you can browse through other environments as well. And if you click on the settings, here you can configure some settings. One of the most important thing is machine settings, because if you would like to use the RPA along with the cloud flows, then you need to set up your machine and you have to do some configuration. Like first you need to connect your machine to the appropriate Power Platform environment, and you need to have a specific role to do that. Not everybody can do that. And then here you can find out the information about machine setting. You can also have the information about machine group. Now, those of you who had experience of hosting a website, or those of you who have worked on on-premise version of SharePoint, or on-premise version of SQL, the same concept goes with Power Automate for desktop as well. There are two ways you can use Power Automate for desktop. One is the hosted RPA, where Microsoft will be in charge of the infrastructure where your RPA bots will get executed. But that is very less common because Microsoft just announced about hosted RPA recently. But one of the most common scenario is you will be hosting the infrastructure for your RPA bots. So the same concept goes there when it comes to you are hosting the infrastructure for your RPA bots, where you need to spin up the servers or VMs where your RPA bots will be hosted. You need to configure, do the configuration of that. Here you can have the machine set. That means I can use the combination of machines to execute my RPA bot. And you can also see the machine settings into the Power Automate UI as well. So if I go here, and once the screen loads, I can see the machine settings in the Power Platform portal as well. So once this page load, I will go to that particular link. All right, so if I click on this link, view machine in the portal, now this should launch the browser. And in the browser, then I should be able to see the configuration of this machine into the Power Automate UI. All right, so looks like the machine is all set, everything is active, and I can see some of the things that we did a few minutes before, a few hours before, in terms of what kind of RPA bots we ran on this particular machine, and some other information about this machine as well. Now let's go to the Power Automate for desktop, and let's go. So here, just like our Power Automate, you'll be seeing, if I click on My Flows, now, in this case, only the desktop flows will be listed. And now, those of you who don't know what's the desktop flow, what's the cloud flow. So if you sign in for, if you go to the Power Automate page, and here you'll be seeing your flows will be categorized into three categories: cloud flows, which is your regular automation flows, which you can integrate, build using, let's say, Outlook connector or SharePoint connector. Then there will be desktop flows, which are basically your RPA bots. And the third one will be where the flows which are shared with you. So you will be using Power Automate for desktop to create the desktop flow. So if I click here, new. Now let's say if I go to this particular desktop flow, and if I click on edit, I will need to use Power Automate for desktop to edit this flow. I will not be able to use the UI to edit this flow or to create this flow. Keep that in mind. For example, if I click here and click on edit, now I'll be opening this particular flow on this machine. Then I should be able to see how exactly I have implemented the automation here. And those of you who are familiar with SharePoint Designer, the experience is kind of similar, where everything you are doing is locally. You have the concept of actions. So most of the actions are listed into the left-hand side. However, you don't have to remember name of each and every action. You can just use the search action. For example, now I would like, as part of my RPA bot, I would like to do the manipulation with, let's say, the file. And if I search for that, and then I'll see there are various options available when it comes to file. Now I want to do a manipulation with folder. If I search for that, all the corresponding actions that are there with folder. Now I want to play with SharePoint. Let's see if there are any actions available. So there are a lot of actions available with SharePoint. However, those actions are still in preview because Microsoft recently added those. But now, using this out-of-the-box actions, we can do a lot of manipulations or automation using the SharePoint as well. And if you look at the actions, a lot of the list of actions is very comprehensive. Like there are some OCR capabilities, there are support for Microsoft Cognitive Services, Google AI APIs, IBM AI APIs, AWS, Azure, FTP, like any kind of traditional use case that you see, you can see here. You can also do the web automation as well. For example, if I do something with the browser, those kind of options are also available. For example, I can fill the information in the browser. I can launch a new Chrome window. I can launch a new Firefox window. So multiple actions are there. I can run a JavaScript function. And I can also do a debug as well. If you have done any kind of custom development, I can debug this desktop flow right here in the machine. I can apply the breakpoint. And there is a concept of flow and subflow. You will always have a main flow, but you can divide your business logic between multiple subflow. That way, you can have one giant RPA bot, and inside that you have multiple subflows. And depending on business logic, you can call one flow over another. And in the left-hand side, in the right-hand side, you see here on the top, you see the input-output variables. For example, if I go here and click New, I can select what kind of variable it is, whether it's input and output, and I can specify that. And then I can specify what type of data type that I'm accepting. So right now, I can send information such as text, number, Boolean, custom object, list, and data table. And same goes for the output as well. So if I go as output, similar type of information I can send. Then towards the bottom section, you can configure your variables where you can store information about that, about a specific value you can store, or you can configure, or you can set a particular value. For example, here, if I go, let's see. So this is the action I have where I'm setting the value of an invoice variable. And I can click on this X. And here I can specify what kind of variable I'll do. I can also do some manipulation here as well. So when it comes to applying business logic, everything is very, very powerful here. Now, let me show you a real life use case, and I will show you how exactly the RPA operation will look like. So what I'll be doing is we have a scenario where we would like to implement an automation related to the invoices. For example, the customer typically sends an invoices to a dedicated Exchange Online mailbox. But those invoices can be in the form of PDF documents. Those can be in the form of images as well. And what you want to do is, as part of our automation, we want to reopen those invoices. We would like to capture some key information from the invoices. And once that information is there, then we would like to add that information to a legacy system. Now, before we implement this automation, someone has to manually monitor the mailbox as soon as the invoice comes, then open the invoice file, see what's the amount is due, when it's due, what's the vendor name, what's the purpose, capture that information and manually add to a legacy system. Now, what we have done is we have built a Cloudflow, a combination of Cloudflow and desktop flow to automate that process. First, what I'll show you the actual implementation of it. And then later on, I will show you how exactly we have implemented that process. So first thing I'll be doing is I will be simulating that. Like, for example, I'll be sending an email to a dedicated mailbox with a specific subject line. And as part of this email, I will be adding an attachment as well. Okay, let me show you and let me send this email. Okay, let me open this and I'll show you some of the values in it. So you see, this is an image I'm sending as part of the invoice. So the invoice has the invoice number, what's the balance due, what's the due date, who to bill to, what's the contact information. So I'm sending that in email to a dedicated Exchange Online mailbox. As part of automation, what we would like to do is as soon as this particular invoice comes, we would like to start an automation. So first thing we would like to do is we would like to extract the information from this invoice. Now, if someone is doing this manually, it is very easy. You just have to open the mailbox, read the information, and then note down. But what we want to do is we would like to automate this particular scenario. And to read the information from this image, we are using some AI services. And once the cloud flow start, I will show you what kind of AI services we are using. So to read this information, you can implement the scenario in two ways. You can either use AI Builder, which is one of the services available in Power Platform, or you can use another service in Azure called Azure Form Recognizer. Now, for this scenario, I have used Azure Form Recognizer because Azure Form Recognizer is much cheaper as compared to the AI Builder. And those of you who don't know about Azure Form Recognizer, let me quickly open this link for you. It's a really good service that you can use for automated data processing. Using this service, you can capture information not only from the invoices, but from the receipts. And there are so many different use cases that you can use. And you can also build your own custom model as well. What Power Platform team has done is they have made the usage of this particular service very, very easy as part of the AI Builder. So if you go to the AI Builder, there is a receipt processing or invoice processing model is also available. But behind the scene, that model is also using Azure Form Recognizer. However, the usage of that via AI Builder is much easier as compared to directly consuming that service from Recognizer. And as you can see, automatically it has launched a desktop flow where whatever the information is coming from that invoice is getting added to a legacy system. We just open on my desktop, and once that is done, it will also be adding that information to an Excel file. And once everything is done, our cloud flow will end. Once this is done, I will show you the exact implementation of it. So it looks like our flow was successfully executed. Now let me walk you through its implementation. So first thing is this flow start when a new email arises. And the first thing it does is it is sending the attachment to the Azure Form Recognizer service. And that particular service is helping us to extract some of the key information from the invoices. And once we have those key information, we actually passing that information to our RPA bot. For example, we are passing what's the amount, what is the contact information, what's the account name. And then we are calling that RPA bot. Once the RPA bot successfully add that information to a legacy system, then we are uploading that attachment to the SharePoint as well inside this particular folder. For example, this particular attachment, the invoice file got added here. Now let me show you the implementation of this. So if I go here and if I click edit, so this is pretty straightforward. This cloud flow start whenever a new email arises, and then it uses this Azure Form Recognizer. And here we had to specify the information about attachment. And once that information is there, then for each document, what it's doing is it is first checking, okay, whether the invoice amount is greater than a certain limit or not. Then it is using this action called run a flow built with Power Automate for desktop. And if I expand that, you'll see there are multiple options here. So first, I had to select what kind of desktop flow I had to call. And the moment I select that, it will show me whether the desktop flow accepts any input parameters or not. And in this case, it accepts amount, contact, and account name. Then we have to specify what's the run mode, attended versus unattended mode. And in this case, everything is happening in attended mode, but in real life scenario, you'll be using unattended mode. And then the third parameter is what kind of priority. So by default, whenever you run an RPA job, your priority will be always normal, but you can also set that to high as well. And once your job is done, then you can see, you can go ahead with your next set of operation. Now, when it comes to monitoring, if I go and monitor here, click on monitor here, I can click on desktop flow runs. That's where you can monitor the desktop flow runs per environment. So here I can see the desktop flow that has been run per environment. What was the desktop flow name, what was the mode, which machine it uses to execute that, and how exactly that desktop flow got started. So in this case, this was the cloud flow which started the desktop flow. So all this information is available to you, which comes really handy when it comes to debugging the information, or you want to find out how exactly your desktop flow ran. Now let me go ahead and show you the implementation of this. But before that, let me see if there are any questions in the chat window.
Any questions? Leave questions in the chat.
Okay. Now let me show you the implementation of this. So as part of this desktop flow, the first thing we are doing is we are running an application. And let's say if I had to do the same thing, all I do is run application. And I can just drag and drop here. Let me drag that. And then once I drag an option, then I have to specify what's the path where this application is located. Okay. And what's the variable where this particular value will get stored. For example, here, so this is the application I'm running, and this is, let's assume that it's a legacy invoice application, and then this is the ID where I'm specifying storing the value here. Now, if you go to the three dots, you'll see a lot of different options here. You can move your actions up and down. You can delete the option. You can copy paste. You can do run from here as well. For example, your desktop automation has 50 steps. And now, instead of going through your desktop flow from the beginning, you can start your automation from a specific stage as well. And then here we are doing a bunch of operation in terms of the UI. Okay. Now, how I will configure this? So to configure this, what you can do is you can run the recorder. Okay. So if I run a recorder, once I run a recorder and I implement a specific steps, UI steps, then those steps will get recorded. Now, in this case, what I'll do is I will be, let's say, opening up a legacy application, and then and then I'll be adding that information to a legacy application. So let's call start. And then let's see. Okay, looks like I need an extension. Okay, enable this. All right, so this step is done. Let me click on record. And now what I will do is I will do a bunch of operation here. First thing I will be doing is I will be running this Contoso app. If it's not there, let me run, let's say, Excel. Okay. Now, if it is opening an Excel file, and I'm opening a blank file, and let me add some entries here. Name, address, and email address is. All right, and I can just click done. Now what will happen is the moment I click done, so the recorder has recorded all the steps that I have done so far, and now it will add those steps into our Power Automate for desktop here. For example, everything we did, that includes, let's say, opening up the Windows search bar, doing all the stuff, everything got recorded here. And now, so that, for example, if I run this, you will see the exact same kind of steps your RPA bot will be taking. So these steps are already there. So once these steps are done, now you can see it is doing the exact same thing that I was doing earlier while recording the steps. Okay. Now, once I use the recorder, then all these steps will be there, but I should be able to, configure a few values over there. For example, here I have populated some item here, but I can use the variable so that instead of providing the Prashant and my email address all the time, I can use some values from the variables and populate that instead. So let me close this and don't save this. And let me open this again. And then I'll show you how exactly I implemented the automation when it comes to running the legacy application, opening an Excel file, those kind of things. So the first thing we are doing is we are running this, opening up this legacy application. And whenever we are calling this desktop flow, we are passing this information to this particular desktop flow. And then we are adding a new record. Then whatever the information is there from the account, contact, amount, all this information is getting added. And once that is done, then we are running this subflow called write notes to an Excel. And if I go to this subflow, what we are doing is we are opening another Excel file from this location and then adding some new records. And while adding the record, I'm getting information from this input variables. And once the record is saved, then we are closing the Excel file. So similarly, you can implement the combination of Cloudflow and desktop flow to implement end-to-end automation over here. So with that, let me know if you have any questions. We come to pretty much end of the talk. And so if you want to get started with Microsoft RPA, so these are some of the references you can use. And also one reference that you won't see here is there is a good tutorial available from Microsoft under RPA in a day. I highly recommend you to go through that. For example, if you go here, just search for RPA okay. And there are really good labs available from Microsoft that you can go and take by yourself and go through all the things that are important for you to learn about RPA over there. Now, in case you would like to get started with Power Automate or RPA, however, you don't have the required access, I recommend you to explore this program from Microsoft called Microsoft 365 Developer Program, where you can go to this link, sign up for the developer program, and via that program, you get your personal Microsoft 365 subscription for free. It comes with E5 subscription and with 25 users, and initially it will be valid for 90 days. And if you follow all the licensing terms, then Microsoft will automatically extend your trial period for additional 90 days, and they'll keep on doing it as long as you're not violating any licensing term, and also you're using this training tenant for personal training and development. Of course, you can sign up for the trial, but when you sign up for the trial, you have to use a credit card. Now, if you would like to use any of the Azure services, such as cognitive services or form recognizer, for that you need Azure subscription. And there are multiple ways you can get Azure subscription. My personal favorite is if you have access to MSDN, go to your MSDN portal and activate your free credits. If you don't have that, you can always sign up for the free trial. However, when you do that, when you sign up for free trial, you have to use your credit card information. There is another program available from Microsoft called Azure for Students, where you don't need a credit card. All you need is a valid EDU account from your school, and depending on your country, you get some fixed credits. So hopefully, the content we covered today made you explore the Power Automate for desktop, and you'll go home and play with it. With that, we come to an end. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me. My information is available via email. I'm also available on LinkedIn. With that, thanks for joining us today. Stay safe and healthy, and let's see if there are any questions.
Yes, thank you, Prashant. We have Ted, who would ask any thoughts about security.
Okay, so when it comes to security, right, let me show you this particular flow here. So everything you do with Cloudflow or with the desktop flow, the security is one of the things which is very important, and Microsoft has paid a lot of information, like a lot of attention to it. So when it comes to security, everything you do with the Cloudflow, everything is tied up with your connections. Now, when it comes to the desktop flow, right, whatever you do will be running in the context of a user. For example, this is a desktop flow, and this desktop flow will be running in the context of the user. Now, from this desktop flow, now let's say if I had to access an application, whether let's say there's a web application that I have to open, and while opening that web application, you have to pass in some user credentials. You can also do that, and you can store those user credentials into some of the secure way. You can use Azure's Key Vault for that. So instead of storing your user credentials in the plain text, you can use Azure Key Vault and get the credentials from Azure over there. Let's say if there is a out-of-the-box action available for that. Okay, there are a couple of ways, a couple of questions related to the presentation. What I'll do is I will share this deck with Shadid. And when Shadid will be sending out information about recording, I think he can include the link to the deck as well. But Ted, just keep in mind that everything will be secure, what you will do when it comes to both cloud flows as well as the desktop flows. However, one thing you have to keep in mind is, since if you are not using hosted RPA, and if you're using your own VM, Windows VM to execute your RPA bots, then you as an organization is in charge of maintaining the security of those Windows VM. And the same kind of concept goes. Okay, so Matt has a question. How does a citizen developer best choose a right Microsoft automation tool when meeting the demands of a customer? Power Automate, Azure Function. Okay. Okay, this is a question that we always get. Okay, like typically, if you are a customer, then what you'll be doing is, okay, I have this scenario I would like to automate. Now you tell me what kind of services I have to use, and that's where you have to wear a consultant hat. And the approach we typically take is find out what kind of steps that we have to do to implement the automation, and what is going to be the best way to implement that automation. Implementing an automation is one way, but who are the people who are going to be maintaining that automation once we are gone? Now, let's say if the client has a luxury of having a professional developers, then I would definitely explore some of the services in Azure, because initially we may need some more time to use the services, but over the period of time, the cost wise it will be is very cheaper. For example, something like Azure Function will be a lot cheaper as compared to, let's say, using some of the premium functionality in Power Platform. Now, when it comes to using whether to use RPA versus digital process automation, the approach or guidance from Microsoft is, or if it's a pretty standard, is always use DPA first. And if you cannot use DPA for some reason, then use RPA, because RPA is expensive, RPA is hard, and also RPA is slow as compared to your traditional digital process automation. Now, if you would like to use Azure, and you know usage of Azure is cheaper as compared to using something in Power Platform, such as AI Builder. However, what if the department that you're working with does not have access to Azure? However, they have access to Power Platform. In that case, you have to go with Power Platform services, even though those are more expensive. Now, what if you are building an application? However, the people who are maintaining those applications falls under those people fall under slow code or citizen development category. Then using as many features from Power Platform is advisable, because even though those are expensive, still the people with low code, no code experience can maintain that once you build automation. I hope that answered some of your questions from you, Matt. But if you have any feedback, feel free to unmute yourself or feel free to chime in with additional comments in the chat window. But this is a really great question, because we get this question quite a lot, and that's where we had to wear consultant hat, and there is no straight right or wrong. You just had to take the decision based on the circumstances and based on the customer requirement and the infrastructure or the services they have access to. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, if you enjoyed this session, if you gained value from this session, make sure you go over to Prashant's LinkedIn profile and leave a recommendation to discuss the quality of the session, the demo itself, and the resources as well. So on behalf of Prashant, I'd like to thank all who joined: Alan, Corey, Don, John, Kevin, Matt, hey, Patrick, Rick, Rushi, Sherry, and the Ted Staley. Happy New Year to all. Join us in February for our next session. Onward we go. So stay tuned for next month. Thank you, Prashant.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining. Stay safe and stay healthy, and we hope to see you in future